Abuse, intimidation.
I never expected to face this much violence and put up with it.
Crushing bureaucracy and rising tensions within local councils.
There used to be a good atmosphere in council meetings, but in the end there could be fistfights.
Running a town can take a heavy toll on health and family life.
At night, you're the mayor. During the day, you're the mayor. Even when you're on holiday, you're the mayor. 365 days a year.
Even before the end of their mandates, a growing number of French mayors are stepping down, especially in rural areas. These are the village mayors who hung up their sash.
I'd been mayor since April 2014. I submitted my letter of resignation to the prefect, and it was accepted on the 28th of January 2026.
Montfleur, a quiet village in eastern France, where appearances can be deceptive.
These are all the complaints, police reports, and threats, either via email or voice messages. Here's a letter that says, "I warned you. I told you to be careful. I'm going into battle, and once my tank rolls forward, there's no going back. When I fight, I take no prisoners." This was sent to me by a local resident.
Threats, abuse, it all piled up. In January 2023, Jean-Claude woke up in the middle of the night. His town hall was burning down.
There were 2 separate fires, proof that they were started deliberately. The first thing I did was open the door because I knew where the fire extinguishers were. But I couldn't get in, there was too much smoke. I couldn't cope, I ended up in tears.
The arson investigation is still underway. Jean-Claude Nevers believes his strict respect for the law made him some enemies.
Some of my opponents told me, "We used to do whatever we wanted before, but since you've been mayor, we can't anymore." There were plenty of irregularities, conflicts of interest, all sorts of things. When I arrived in 2014, the town hall was almost bankrupt.
Mayors and local councillors are in the firing line from the anger of their constituents. They account for 82% of attacks against elected officials.
Bonjour Michel. Bonjour Jacqueline.
Jean-Claude Nevers' team wasn't spared, starting with his deputy.
This is where my car was set on fire on October the 24th, 2024. You can still see the scorch marks on the tree. After that, 3 more cars were burnt. 2 belonged to local councillors.
Michel Chavon resigned at the same time as the mayor and the second deputy mayor, who were also targeted.
This is my husband's grave. It was vandalized and prized open. The headstone was removed and left on the ground. Targets were spray painted everywhere. It was really hard to deal with. I never expected such senseless violence.
The perpetrators are still unknown. Since 2024, tougher penalties have been introduced for attacks against local officials.
This is my great-great-grandfather in 1910. He was mayor for a few years. My grandfather Jean was mayor for 10 years. My father Jacques came just after him and served for 35 years. And me, Jean-Jacques, for 15 years. I'm the last one.
2 years ago, Jean-Jacques Noël stepped down as head of a village that had lost its community spirit.
In my father's and grandfather's day, the center of the village had an old sawmill, a bakery, several shops, a few bars and restaurants. But over time, the heart of the village emptied out. Today, there's nowhere for people to meet and chat. I would have loved to see a little cafe in the village or even a library, somewhere to gather and talk, like a community hub where everyone comes together. But today there's none of that in the village. These places don't exist anymore.
In rural areas, community ties are fraying with each generation. And bureaucracy weighs heavily on mayors.
We hardly have any real human contact anymore. There's so much paperwork. We fill out endless files, page after page. It never stops, and the norms change all the time. It's unbearable. I wasn't interested in power. I wanted to build things. We improved the sewer system, water supply, we fixed the church, created housing. We finished plenty of projects, and I was proud of that.
Yet there were darker clouds on the horizon, and the political climate was getting tense.
I resigned in 2023 following a serious disagreement with 2 or 3 city councillors who harassed me.
Conflicts within the city council are the #1 reason that mayors resign. Now Jean-Jacques Noël has a calmer pace of life, away from politics.
2 years on, I've settled into a much calmer routine, and I'm more relaxed, more peaceful. I wake up, have breakfast, and then spend an hour with my animals, which feels good.
At night, you're the mayor. During the day, you're the mayor. Even when you're on holiday, you're the mayor. 365 days a year. The mental strain is always there.
In 2020, Sophie Revins became the first female mayor of Les Adrets, a village nestled in the Alps. A source of pride for her daughters, and a sacrifice at the same time.
She was always on her phone. When we talked to her, she would give us vague answers or not answer at all. We would ask her questions, but she wouldn't answer. And whether it was for a hug or anything else, it was always Dad, never Mum. Because we felt like we were bothering her. At least I felt like I was bothering her. I remember one time, and this was a big turning point in terms of my decision to resign. I was with the girls, so the 3 of us were at home, and there was a problem. I can't remember what it was, maybe a little bump or something. I was right there, and they called their dad. And that's when I realized that I was no longer part of their lives, and as a mother, that's quite a harsh realization.
Like many mayors, she juggled her municipal duties with her job as a hospital night shift manager.
At the time, Sophie's typical day meant leaving for work at the hospital around 7 p.m. and coming home at 7 or 8 a.m. She would go straight to a meeting at the town hall, followed by all the projects that were going on in the community, so she was exhausted. She couldn't keep that up for 6 years. It was impossible.
At the time, Sophie Revins thought of putting her job on hold to devote herself entirely to her municipal duties. But the mayor's financial allowance, which is based on the number of inhabitants, wouldn't have covered the family budget.
I think they could rethink this so the allowance isn't based on the number of inhabitants, because I find that wrong. It's not at all representative of how invested the mayor is. Perhaps the allowances should take into account the loss of salary if you quit your job. Because being a mayor is not a profession and it shouldn't become one, but it is a job, and a full-time job at that.
Sophie discovered this job in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, and she was left mostly to fend for herself. Resignations among mayors reached record levels at that time.
Getting elected during COVID in the middle of lockdown meant that all the meetings that new elected officials usually have at City Hall were cancelled. So for the first 2 years, we didn't really have any benchmarks for what our deadlines would be and what the authorities would expect of us.
Just 2 years after her election, Sophie threw in the towel.
Bonjour Marie-Jeanne.
The villagers reacted to her decision with mixed feelings.
You have to be persistent. You have to put aside your personal feelings. Because the people who voted for you think you're going to see it through to the end.
It's pretty healthy to be able to say no at some point, and they had a collective, so the handover went well. In any case, from my outside perspective, as an administrator, I think it was well done, and it didn't cause us any problems.
Her first deputy took over and decided to run for a second term. As the only candidate, Delphine Perrault won the election. Like Les Adrets, 68% of French municipalities had only one candidate on the list, which means the outcome of local elections is often quite predictable.